Good evening and welcome to Navigating the High School Years. The counseling department is excited to host this event this evening to give an overview of what to expect through the high school years and what other meetings and resources are to come in the future. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Lauren Moore. I'm one of the counselors here at Edgemont Junior Senior High School and also chair of the department. I'm going to take a minute to just introduce everybody with us this evening. We have June Comitano, counselor for grades 7 through 9, along with myself. Jamie Brookman, one of our counselors for grades 10 through 12. Emily Coleman, also grades 10 through 12. Kevin Fleck, and Stephanie Fuentes. We also have with us this evening our principal, Mr. Kyle Hosier, and our two assistant principals, Ms. Mary Rose Joseph and Ms. Sharon Flynn. I'm going to go ahead and share our presentation. Just as a reminder, we did share a Google form to ask questions. You can ask questions throughout the presentation or at the end. They will be read and we'll let you know when there's a warning when we're about to end if there's any final questions. And if there's a question you weren't able to ask, or perhaps you're watching this later on with the recording, you can feel free to reach out to your child's counselor. We're happy to answer any questions you may have. On that note, I'm going to get started with our presentation.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to share information about the Regents exams. Regents exams are New York State achievement tests, and they are not Edgemont High School exams. After students complete the courses that you see on this slide, they will take the Regents exam at the end of the year in June. In 11th grade, students will take the Comprehensive English Regents. In 10th grade, Global History and Geography. Generally in 9th grade, Algebra 1. For science, students will take a Regents exam after completing the Regents level science class that they chose to take. And 11th grade, U.S. History and Government. For graduation requirements, students will receive 1 credit after completing and passing a full year course. So for English and Social Studies, students need to take 4 credits. So they will take 4 years of English and Social Studies at the high school. Math and Science, 3 credits. World Language, 1 credit. Health, half a credit. Art and/or Music, 1 credit. Elective, 3.5 credits. For 3.5 credits, this is anything beyond what is required here. For example, students can take 4 years of math or more than 1 year of world language or additional electives. Physical education will be 2 credits, and students need a total of 22 credits to graduate. Parents and students do not need to worry, since counselors will work with their students each year to make sure that they have enough credits. Next, I'm going to ask Ms. Moore to talk about the course selection process.
Hi again. So I want to talk just a little bit about our course process and also programming we have through high school. So in a couple of weeks, we're actually going to be going into the classrooms next week to talk to students about their courses for the following year and what their options are. We'll continue to have various elective options through the years. As we often tell the students, the older they get, the more choice they have. And we really are excited by that they get to start making choices based on interests, things, strengths, maybe areas they want to work on. So we continue to offer many electives each year. We also have various levels as they've had through the years in junior high as well to meet individual needs. Beginning in 10th grade, we do start offering some additional honors and AP level classes when appropriate for students. Just to give a little sense of what those look like, an AP course is a college level course. The curriculum is through the College Board, which is what also creates the SATs. And so the curriculum is all based on that, on the AP course, and they take an AP exam at the end of the course. We also have honors level courses, and those courses, the one difference is that the curriculum is created by our teacher. So again, it's a more rigorous curriculum, but not based on the AP on an AP curriculum, therefore no AP exam at the end. It'll vary from subject to subject. Some courses are an AP level, some are an honors level, depending on the subject area. We also do require typically for courses a recommendation and meeting the criteria that's in the curriculum bulletin that each department puts together. And we do that because we want students to be in the classes where they're going to meet with the most success. So therefore, we do have some criteria in place to ensure that students are placed where they're going to do the best for them. Each year, the students will meet with their counselor to talk about their courses and their electives for the following year. We do ask, especially as they get older and there are different level options and different electives available, to just really think about balance. And the counselors will talk until we're blue in the face about making sure you have a balance. And that includes the courses you're taking here at Edgemont. So thinking about perhaps if you are considering a more rigorous class, balancing that out with the rest of your schedule, and also thinking about your extracurriculars. And Emily will speak in a minute about our extracurriculars. And so thinking about that outside of school as well, and making sure that you're not spreading yourself too thinly, and you're going to meet with the most success. Once the course selection process starts, which will again start next week, we will send emails home as we always do, and we'll have a section of our counseling department website that will outline the steps to the process, and the curriculum bulletin will be shared, which outlines every single one of our courses along with flow charts and the criteria for those different courses. A couple programs to note that begin in 11th or 12th grade are our BOCES program and Phaedrus. BOCES is through our Southern Westchester BOCES. Students will go there. It's a half-day program. So they would spend either their morning or their afternoon at BOCES, and it's a career and technical program. So we have a variety of different options that our students have taken advantage of over the years: EMT services, animal science, sound production, mechanics, pre-engineering, just to name a few. Well, we have interest meetings with the students. We just hosted one today for our incoming 11th graders or 12th graders that are interested in the program. And if you have more questions, please encourage your child to come talk with their counselor, or you can reach out to us as well. We also have our Phaedrus program. Some people might know it as our A school. It's our alternative school, which is on campus. Again, it's a half-day program. It's typically in the afternoons, and they'll have all of their humanities classes within the program, including internship experiences, team building, small personalized learning environment, to really build on those team building skills, communication, writing. It's really a great program. There's an interest meeting that will take place in the winter for students that are interested in applying. It is an application-based program. They look for students with all different strengths and weaknesses, students that are looking for something different, students that may want to just have this unique experience. They'll have an opportunity to sit in on classes, meet with current Phaedrus students and the teachers of the program, and there's a parent night as well for those interested. We do sometimes have seniors apply to the program, so that's also an option if they didn't necessarily apply in 11th grade. I'm now going to turn it over to Miss Emily Coleman, who's going to talk more about getting involved outside of the classroom.
Thank you, Lauren. So I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about how your child's involvement outside the classroom should be as meaningful and fulfilling as your academics are. We stress the importance of being engaged throughout the 4 years, starting with encouraging all students to attend the activities fair that we host at the beginning of the year. It's a great opportunity for students to learn all about the clubs and organizations that are available. And we have a variety of clubs led by our upper class students who take on leadership roles. And what's really great is that participants get to connect with others who have similar interests and can even become club leaders when they're older. I do want to stress it is not too late if your child has yet to join a club. They are listed on the website under the activities tab. Our athletics program is also something that many of our students participate in throughout high school, and is a great way to engage in our community while building important skills. While we have many of the better known programs like soccer and football, we also have some more unique offerings like the ski team and gymnastics. More information about the athletics program can be found on the school website as well. Volunteering and working, especially as students get older, are additional activities that are popular with Edgemont students. We have students who work in animal shelters, nursing homes, local hospitals, as well as find jobs on Central Avenue. This is a great experience for our students to learn how to advocate for themselves and to actively seek out opportunities. Now, here's the most important part. Think about the quality of what your children do after school, not the quantity. We cannot stress enough our belief that it is more important for a student to find things that they're passionate about and be able to be fully committed and become leaders rather than spread themselves too thin by overcommitting. We know there is a lot of pressure to do the right activity or to be well-rounded for when college application times come. However, colleges would much rather see a student engage in a passion than just participate in a resume builder. Admissions representatives have trained eyes to spot that and can really tell when activities are authentic. So it's less about what you do and more about what you do with it. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Brookman, who's going to talk about transcripts.
Thank you. So the transcript is a history of all of your child's high school level courses, which consist of final grades only. Quarter grades do not appear on a transcript. So if a student has one quarter that isn't as strong as their other three, no one sees it once the grade is final. The transcript also reports Regents exam grades and the student's cumulative grade point average, or GPA. GPAs are calculated after 2 complete years of high school coursework at Edgemont High School. For many, your student will receive their 2-year GPA once 10th grade is completed. The student's GPA will not change again until after 11th grade is finished. Edgemont's GPA scale is on a 5.0 weighted scale, which means that the student can have higher than a GPA of a 5.0. Our GPA scale is posted on our website. Many colleges will recalculate GPAs since there are so many variations so that the applicants are all on a similar scale. Keep in mind, behind every GPA is a story. 2 students can have the same GPA, but very different profiles. Colleges look to see that the student is challenging themselves in courses that are of interest to them while maintaining the appropriate balance. I will now turn it over to Ms. Fuentes.
Thank you, Ms. Brookman. I wanted to give everyone a sense about the role of the school counselor as we move through the remaining high school years. I think at Edgemont, we're really fortunate as a both junior and senior high school that we have the unique opportunity for our students to make the transition from junior high to high school with a counselor who knows them and who they know really well. And yet, and then they each get transitioned to a new counselor in 10th grade, and that still gives us the time we need to help them start to help them experience their high school years as well as plan for life after Edgemont. So at the start of 10th grade, all of our students get a new counselor. It's very, and we're lucky that Ms. Matano and Ms. Moore are still in our suite. And so students get to interact with them still, and they see them kind of develop and through the high school years in order to make that transition a smooth one. So the students will either have Ms. Brookman, Ms. Coleman, Mr. Fleck, or myself, and we'll remain with them through graduation, from 10th grade to graduation. And to facilitate that transition, because it can be, disconcerting to leave the counselor you've known for so many years, the 10th grade counselors, when we go into classes next week to talk about next year, the 10th grade counselors will be going into the 9th grade classrooms to talk about 10th grade, since we will be their counselors that year, and just so that we are familiar faces and names. And we will ask those 9th grade students to make their course scheduling meeting with the 10th grade counselor going to have. That gives them, again, an opportunity to get to know us before they're making the official transition. We will remind them that, of course, they can have conversations with Ms. Matano and Ms. Moore about these choices, because, of course, that's where, that's who knows them really well at this point. But we have the unique ability to talk to them about kind of the, planning forward. And so that's a great opportunity for us to just connect on something that doesn't, that feels important for next year. So in 10th through 12th grade, the counselor is still first priority. We continue to provide academic and social emotional support while also helping each student to think about planning for life after Edgemont. So in terms of thinking about what happens after graduation, what students can be doing now, as ninth graders or 10th graders, is really the very most important thing, is to focus on a strong academic, that they're having a strong academic experience, and that they're reaching out for support and learning how to advocate when they're having difficulty. As I think sometimes what can be surprising is that, at this point, when they're going in 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, in order to get grades that might have been earned earlier by, doing all your work and doing everything you were told and being, a good citizen, the grades now to earn an A differently now is now mastery of material. So really focusing on engaging with their academics, and as Ms. Coleman spoke so well about the extracurricular pursuits. And I just want to echo this idea of the quality of the experience. There are students that really have to be at home to help take care of a sibling because parents work. There are students who are working to contribute to the family income. All of that is seen as kind of the idea kind of in your extracurriculars is, how do you spend your time outside the classroom? And there is no combination that's the winning combination. There's no type of activity that's more important than the other. It's really being authentic with developing passions, learning skills, and really spending time. And also, we do want to encourage students to have time to have downtime with themselves, time with their family and friends, sleep, all of that. Students at this point can start just very generally exploring potential career interests, which Mr. Fleck will speak more about. In 11th grade, you can look forward to a junior post-secondary planning night. We will host events with admissions professionals to speak about different aspects of the college search and selection process. Each family will have an individual meeting, post-secondary planning meeting with their child and their student's counselor to talk specifically one-to-one about their unique experience, as those are all very individual process, thinking about what comes after graduation. Typically, and those individual meetings, we just talked to the current junior class about starting those, and we're starting them this coming week, and those kind of go throughout the spring. Typically, we have a financial aid night with an expert that will talk to our families about what to expect in the financial aid process in May. We also, the counselors, host a college writing workshop around May or usually in June, when courses are finals are winding up and Regents exams are coming, and that will help students prepare to go into summer, prepare to write drafts, and think about their writing that may be required in the application process. And then, in 11th grade, we continue to think globally about college. Maybe the demographics of a school that may be important, maybe having conversations with families about restrictions or expectations. So talking about geography, size, location, and then this general sense of vibe, if you will. Is it a social fit? We recommend students taking visits when they can. There's a lot online that students can do. Since COVID, they had limited those in-person visits. Schools have really upped the ante on what they're able to put online to mimic kind of the college tour experience, but getting to campuses whenever possible is always really informational for families. They're doing researching schools. In 12th grade, there'll be a grade level meeting to talk about application procedures. There will be counselor meetings, to assist throughout all aspects of the process. We really focus in this, in the junior year, it's developing a broader scope list. In the senior year, it's really making sure that that list is narrowed and super well balanced in terms of level of selectivity for admission. The counselors are also very happy to help students review pieces of writing that may be required, and just general application support. We will be here to help you and the students every step along the way. And I'm going to pass it over now to Mr. Fleck.
Thank you, Ms. Fuentes. So as she mentioned, with regards to career exploration, I think that's something that a student can go through the post-secondary process not having a sense of what it is that they want to study or maybe what they want to do for a career, and colleges are completely fine with that. It's certainly helpful to be thinking about areas of interest. I think this is also a place where the Edgemont community comes together and is a great resource. So for folks who may work in a specific field to be available for students who may ask questions, that's always been successful in the past. I actually had a lovely conversation with a parent of a graduate from a couple of years ago today who spoke with me at length about what students who may be looking to pursue careers in the fine arts are hoping to do. So I encourage those types of conversations, and just remember that you have some of the greatest resources right here in Edgemont, including obviously our counseling office. I did want to take a moment though to talk a little bit about standardized testing and its role in the college process. It's probably one of the pieces that's most discussed and probably one of the pieces that's had the greatest continued sort of upheaval regarding COVID and how colleges have reevaluated and looked at their use of it. So specifically for Edgemont students, historically speaking, a high school transcript is always going to be what a college looks at first. When a student is applying, they want to see what you've done over your time in your classes here, where you've shown strength, where you've shown growth, those types of things. Those are the best predictors of academic success. Standardized testing traditionally had been sort of more of a secondary role. And I mention that because as a community, we have many families whose parents' education may have been outside the United States, where it's kind of the reverse, and testing is sort of the driver of college admissions decisions. Whereas here it plays a little bit more of a secondary role. You throw COVID into the mix, where it was a period of time where almost all colleges went test optional, whether it was something they were planning to do or something they needed to do because it was not safe for students to test. So they've actually had several years now remained test optional. We're starting to see one or two schools that have returned to requiring tests. There were a couple of public universities in the South that still required it throughout the whole pandemic. That being said, how students choose to approach testing is something that will be a central part of their conversation with us when they are meeting with us when we talk about this in junior year. Sort of the first stop traditionally that happens is with the PSAT. So that will be offered in the fall of junior year. We speak about that at the grade level meetings for students that happen right when school starts. How we talk about it is a practice for the main SAT, and for juniors, it's also the qualifying exam for the National Merit Scholarship competition. So that will be something that they'll be preparing for. And I will speak in a minute, because for any of you who follow college-related media, you may have seen that the SAT's format is changing pretty significantly. The other exam that many students will take is the ACT. That's the other standardized test that is used in college admissions. In terms of which schools prefer what, there really is no difference. The scoring is a different function. So the SAT is on the 1600 scale, the ACT is on a scale out of 36. There were some schools that were test optional even before COVID happened, and some schools have chosen to remain test optional. Many schools are starting to announce the plan for current juniors and even current sophomore classes that they're extending, but these will be things that we'll monitor and keep the community abreast of as more information comes out. So any college that is asking for test scores will accept either the SAT or the ACT. There is no preference that one says something different than the other about a student. The difference between who traditionally took those exams was geographic, but now there is a lot of crossover. So we see many students just maybe take a practice exam. The PSAT is a great practice. The scores are only seen by student, family, and counselor. They are not seen by colleges or factor into any admissions decisions, but that gives you a sense of what the SAT will look like. The ACT has practice questions. You can do practice diagnostics. And students tend to then zero in on which test feels like a better fit. And a lot of that may just come down to the timing, the structure of the test, how the test is formatted. And typically, we've seen students attempt their first SAT or ACT in the spring of junior year, February for ACT, March for SAT. We have seen in past years some students starting to test earlier. With the SAT changing, it will be interesting to see, and we don't have information specifically from College Board or colleges yet on students taking the old test versus the new test, and if they have scores from two different exams, how that's going to compare. But for those of you who may not be aware, so the SAT is going all digital for all students beginning in spring of 2024. The March 24 exam will be the first one. The PSAT that our current sophomores will take in the fall of their junior year will also be digital. So those tests will match up. You will take it at a test center the way that you always have. Edgemont is a national test center for SAT. We are not a test center for ACT. So when students register for that exam, they will take it just at an area school nearby. Some of the highlights for the digital SAT is it's now a 2-hour exam instead of 3 hours. The reading passages are shorter. I think they describe it as less wordy. They don't have to bring their own timing device. And the major format is it's now what they refer to as an adaptive test. So the evidence-based reading, writing, and the math, those are the two components for the SAT. We'll each have 2 modules. The first module will be kind of an array of questions, and based on how students perform with that, the test for the second module will target easier or harder questions based on how students did with the first one. Full-length digital practice tests will be available in the spring of 2023. I believe Khan Academy is starting to publish some of those things. Khan Academy partners with the SAT for free practice information, free practice test prep, etc. And that can be found through the College Board website. The ACT is maintaining its traditional format, which for our students is pencil and paper, bubbling in Scantrons. It consists of 4 sections. There's an English and math, a reading, and a science section. As I said, it's based out of 36, and that test format will stay the same in the fall of 2023 and the spring of 2024. So there is no significant difference happening there. But we just wanted to make some families aware of that, because we know as students approach the beginning of their junior year and college starts to take a more centralized role, that this is something that students will want to be mindful of, and they are welcome to come and speak with us. We're still gathering information. As I said, colleges have not indicated what they're doing with old scores versus new scores as of yet, because they're not in that admission cycle at this time. But we maintain contact and follow that information, and we'll share as it becomes available to us. And with that, I will turn it back to Ms. Moore.
Great. Thank you so much. So before we get to Q&A, just a quick plug to our website. If you go to the junior senior high school website, under departments, you'll see the counseling department. We have a wealth of resources, particularly as you go through the high school years. As I mentioned, coming up soon, we'll add a tab that will give every step-by-step, every form that would be helpful for the course selection process. We have a wealth of information about the post-secondary process. It's broken down into sections, so you can always feel free to take a look at that. We'll post articles that are helpful. And we'll also post this meeting along with all of our other meetings we have, links to the recordings. I'll also add the slideshow to this as well, where you can click to look at the sample transcript that was available through the slideshow that we discussed this evening. So with that, we're going to get to questions. I see that some people have already posted questions, so I'll go ahead and start reading those. Please know if you have a question now, there's still time. So feel free to add it to the Google form. And like I said, if there's a question that comes to mind later on, or you're watching a recording, you can always reach out to your child's counselor. Okay, I'm going to exit this. Great. So there were two questions related to volunteer work. One was, how can I find out more information about volunteer opportunities available for students? And the second separate question was if we have any sort of form or example form to track hours for that form. Does anybody, I don't need to be the only one talking. Does anybody want to take that one?
I'm happy to answer that. We do not have a form that students are required to fill out. There can sometimes be confusion, especially if students talk to friends who attend other schools. Some schools have a community service requirement, so students need to have verification of hours completed, whether it's for transcript credit or for consideration for things such as, like, say, National Honor Society. We do not have that here, so students volunteer. I do strongly recommend and advise students, if they are doing volunteering or whatever it is they do, to keep a rough list, notes on their phone, whatever organization system works best for them, of what did they do, when did they do it, and roughly about how many hours did they do. It will make their lives much easier when they're trying to include that information on college applications, but they do not need to worry about getting their hours certified or submitting those types of supporting documents when they apply to colleges. Colleges are not looking for that information. They trust that students will be accurate and to the best of their ability when they're reporting what they've done outside the classroom. So we do not need to worry about a way to follow that.
Thank you. The next question is referring to a teacher encouraging students not to take all honors classes because the work might be challenging with the time in the evening. And the question was, if honors classes really are the appropriate level, is it recommended that they still avoid that because of the workload? So it's a great question related to balance.
I'm happy to answer that. It's a good question, and really there's just no answer that encapsulates all students. Everyone's an individual, and we don't, your family is well aware of the other expectations on the students' time, management, their ability to handle the curriculum. Are they a fast reader? Do they manage their time well? All of that. So it's surprisingly few students that every honors or AP that they're recommended for, doing all of them ends well, because it's at what cost? So there's always a cost benefit analysis. We want students to engage outside the classroom. We want students to have downtime. We want students to rest. I know they're not going to, but we do want them to sleep more. And we want them to eat relatively healthy. And we just want them to have, there's no do-over in high school. I always like to remind, families and students that high school is an experience in and of itself, not just a setup for the next experience. And so, and again, there's no do-over. So we really have to take that student by student, and that's an individual conversation with the student, their family, the counselor. It's a good question, and there's just not one answer.
Thank you. And again, I would say if you have questions as your child starts to get recommendations for their courses for next year and you're having those discussions, to reach out if you have questions again to your child's counselor, or encourage that they speak to us when we have our individual meetings about balance and what's best for them on an individual level. Next question. Can you please provide more information about the Phaedrus program? Is there a specific type of student academically gifted? I can take that since I started the conversation. So that is a great question. Phaedrus normally has about 30 juniors and seniors in their program, and they intentionally want to represent a wide spectrum of academic abilities and interests. They want to create a family-like setting where there's a balance of students that are meeting with great success in our current school setting versus those that maybe need something and are looking for something different. They want students that are more leaders. They want students that might be quieter and insightful in different ways. So they're really looking for a balance. And each year when they make those selections, it's done with great intent to make sure they find that. So there's not one right student. It depends on the year, and making a puzzle. Each student is a piece to that puzzle that makes it what the program is intended to be each year. And again, those are great questions. There will be an interest meeting for Phaedrus. That's a great question. If you want more information, I definitely highly encourage that you attend those programs, and that your child does as well if they're interested.
And one thing just to add to that,
Sure.
sorry, but one of my sophomores happened to mention it to me today. Current Phaedrus students are visiting English and social studies classes, I believe, tomorrow, to talk about the program, their experiences, and why they applied. So that'll be an excellent opportunity for students considering it to hear firsthand what that experience is like for them.
And one more thing to add, the parent nights are for Phaedrus interests are next week. So Mr. Hosier usually puts that in his weekly emails so that the parents can be informed about these optional informational meetings coming directly from the Phaedrus program.
Just while Jamie, Ms. Brookman mentioned emails, I forgot to mention when I talked about our website, as Mr. Hosier does, we use email as our communication throughout the years. Any email that we send to the students, we also post on their Google Classroom pages. Each grade has a counseling department Google Classroom page, and we also always forward those emails home to families. So even if the message is directly to students, I always go ahead and forward that to the families as well. So we're all looped in together. So please be sure, I know we get lots of emails, but just to add on, that is our main means of communication. So we highly recommend, we're always reminding the students to check their email. So if you're getting those emails, if you can make sure to remind your children to, hey, you just got, an email, it's really important about blank, whether it be from the counseling department or anybody else at school.
Can I just say one thing? So one of the things that I remind students when we're talking about checking email, because it's I know you young people do not like to use the email, but we like to use the email. So you're going to miss important information, is to remember that a lot of our email is going to come from Ms. Moore directly. So they may be like, that's not my counselor, but as department chair, she's going to send a lot of the correspondences. So we don't want to overlook emails that aren't maybe directly from your child's counselor. So just another thing. And also maybe Ms. Coleman, if it's college or career related, so it's really important to, not just they get so much, we get it, but we will also post in Google Classroom. So whatever they're more willing to check regularly.
The next question was, how does a child know who their counselor will be that they'll be working with for the next year? I can just quickly answer that. They're going to find out during their course selection meetings next week. So the current 9th graders going into 10th grade will share what that breakdown is. It's done alphabetically typically. So we will share, they'll know next week who their counselor will be and who they'll make that appointment with for their course selections. And then they remain with the same counselor. If they're already in 10th grade, they'll remain with their same counselor through the rest of high school. The next question is, can you address your guidance when rising 10th graders want to take 2 math classes so that they are ready for calculus?
I'll take that. So as many of us have mentioned tonight, this is a lot about balance and finding the right balance and doing what's best for you, the individual student, in talking with their counselor, their current math teacher, their families, parents, and guardians. It is not the right path for everyone. It is the right path for some students, but again, it's another academic course. So it's, managing 2 math classes, English, social studies, world language, science. So there is a lot that goes into deciding if you're appropriate for taking the 2 math classes. So we always advise students to speak to your current math teacher and also think about what your life looks like after the school hours, because as mentioned, we want students to be engaged outside of the classroom as well.
Thank you, Ms. Brookman. Next question is, can you talk a little bit about Science Scholars and how it relates to the course selection process?
I'm happy to speak a little bit to Science Scholars. So Science Scholars is a 2.5-year program. Students will enter it at the beginning of their sophomore year with the Intro to Science Scholars class. It is a wonderful program for students who are particularly interested in the research aspects of science. Strong independent thinkers, learners and doers tend to really thrive in that program. They start off in the intro class, and the classes are actually mixed with sophomores, juniors, and seniors together, even though the names of the classes are different, but they're learning from the older students as well as Ms. Dardis, who facilitates the program and teaches the class. So in the beginning, they are researching an array of topics with the goal of kind of winnowing down to something that they would like to devote time during the next 2 summers to researching at greater depth, working with a mentor in, like say, a laboratory setting, conducting their own individual research, putting together their findings, presentations. They enter the some of the national science competitions like Regeneron, WESF, Siemens would be one of the others. So it's a great program for students who know they have that interest and really want to take what they're doing conceptually, say in science classes, and see how it applies kind of in real world settings.
Yeah, I just wanted to add too that one thing is I just want to encourage, this is again a program that's not for everybody. It will have one part of the question was within course selection, you know, it is one of the electives, and then the other elective students could choose would be an art or music elective. And so one does have to think that typically students, when they are choosing science scholars, that's their kind of academic elective during their time at Edgemont, most typically, unless they're sacrificing, you know, something else. And we do come, you know, so it's definitely something to think through. It's not for every student, but it also doesn't have to be specifically for kind of a math science student. We do have we do have students who do social science research as well. We've had students do things based in psychology and anthropology, and so really interesting topics. You know, we often think of like looking through a microscope and they're, you know, or doing something in a lab, and that isn't always the case. And so there's a real opportunity to engage in research and that real world experience across different types of content areas or in areas of interest. It is just it's time consuming. So it's not the only way that students can engage in science research during their high school years. And so you do want to pay attention to what that time commitment is, because, you know, if your family tends to travel to visit family over the summer and they're not able to do the summer commit, there's a lot to consider. It's a wonderful program. And so there are also, just like Phaedrus and BOCES, are information sessions about it. So that's an excellent way to kind of learn more about it or talk to a current student within the program.
Great, thank you. Next question is, how would students think about recommendation letters for college applications? Do they discuss those with their counselors?
I can take that one. So yes, definitely, all students can discuss which recommenders to ask for recommendations with their counselor. It isn't something that we do right now. It really doesn't happen until 11th grade. And you know, you have to look at it with a larger picture. So you want to think about recommenders who know you in the classroom, know your academic skills, can speak about you as a learner in the classroom. And, you know, it doesn't necessarily have to be the teacher who gave you the A. If you worked really hard in a class, you know, and you really feel like that teacher understands you as a learner, then that might be the right teacher. We don't normally recommend it being 9th grade. 10th grade can be a conversation. So at this point, it's really just building up relationships with teachers that you either have now or may have in the future, so that when the time comes, you're ready to ask them.
Great, thank you. There was another question related to some of these overlaps. We talked already about science scholars and the 2 math classes, but one of the questions within that was when will we learn about how to choose these for future classes? So again, next week we'll be going into classrooms. We'll be talking to the students about their options on the counseling department website. We will then have up the steps to the process. The curriculum bulletin will be available where you can read about each course available to your child in their grade. There are also flowcharts for each department, which is how you'll learn about it. One of the other questions was in terms of when do we hear about recommendations? So again, at the end, right before the break, teachers will start giving their recommendations for levels. And so they will speak to the students about them, what they're recommended for. They can certainly ask their teacher if there's a particular course that they're interested in. I know a lot of teachers have already been having discussions about various levels and offerings for the next year. So that'll all be happening in the coming weeks. At the end of the process, we ask the students to, after meeting with their counselor, knowing what their recommendations are, speaking with their teachers, speaking with you, they'll fill out their final course selection form. That form will be where they're making their final decisions. After that, you will receive the course request that your child signed up for. So that's where we really ask that you take a look at that, make sure everything is accurate. We give a window of time, about a week, to make any changes. So it's really important, again, that you're looking at that, making sure it's accurate. There are no changes to be made because there is a deadline to make those changes. And again, if you have any questions, the curriculum bulletin, you can ask teachers, department chairs, or your child's counselor. The next question is, we moved when my son started 10th grade and he's in 11th grade now. How can we get the transcript if he needs something in between? I think they mean if he needs it for something in between.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I understood.
Yeah, I'm guessing,
question.
I think it's kind of two questions. One, I think it's if they need a transcript in between. And I think in this case, the child moved, so they'll have their transcript from their other school as well. I think
so. I think typically if a student is new to our school and they ask for a transcript, what we would do is we always have a copy, an unofficial copy, perhaps our official copy from their previous school, and we'll be able to share a current report card because our transcripts are annual. And we'll be able to discuss that. This is, students move all the time. This is a very common occurrence, and so any program that's going to request a transcript, whether it's a summer program or whatever it may be, will realize that not everybody has been where they're at right now for an extended period of time. So we'll make available whatever we can. We'll always work with the students and the families so that they're not so they're eligible to continue to apply to programs, even if they haven't been here for enough time to have an Edgemont transcript. I hope that was actually with me.
Yeah, again, if there was something different you were asking, please feel free to reach out to your counselor. There are a couple of questions I think we answered already through the evening. There was a question about the SAT format. We already spoke about that. But again, if you ask that question and you do have anything additional you were looking to find out, you can reach out to your child's counselor. The next question was, is there a process to appeal a course selection? I'm guessing that was a course recommendation was the intent of that. So is there a process to appeal? I can take that. Mr. Hoge, yeah. Or
Thank
Mr.
you, Ms.
Hoge,
Moore.
take it.
So in my weekly update, I'll share what that process is. But it starts with an explanation from the student why they want to appeal, a conversation between the student and the teacher. If that doesn't resolve it, then oftentimes it'll be student parent speaking with the department chair. And then ultimately, if that isn't resolved, then a conversation with administration. But look for that in my next weekly update.
Great, thank you. I see just one more question. So just a warning, I'm gonna one more minute to ask a question, then we will close out for the evening. But again, if you have any questions that you still have tomorrow or in the days to come, you can always reach out to your child's counselor or again, department chair, whatever the most appropriate person to answer your question. The question was, is there any specific meeting for planning for 10th grade? So I can answer that. There's not one specific meeting. Again, we have the whole course selection process. If a family has any individual questions about the courses themselves, they can look at the curriculum bulletin, speak to their child, reach out to their child's counselor. If it's specific to a certain department, you can always reach out to the department chair or your child's teacher to ask those questions. This meeting was really meant to give an overview of what to expect all through high school. And again, if you have questions, that's what we're here for. So we're happy to answer those.
I just wanted to add that the current 9th graders will be meeting with their 10th grade counselors and receive information, and they can discuss course selections and what would be appropriate for them. So I just wanted to make that clear.
And just as a clarifying point, when we do go into classrooms, we go into one grade at a time. So we are addressing that grade specifically about the coming year. So, you know, we specifically pick subjects that aren't mixed classes with different, you know, different grade levels in the same class. So we're going into social studies classes. So everyone in the class that I'm going into that day will be headed to the next grade. So we are always talking specifically about the grade to follow. So that will, and the teachers make the, you know, put in the course request for the appropriate placement for the coming year. So really more of the question then becomes around picking the balance. I think it's important to remember that sometimes students get a recommendation for a placement and then they feel bad if they don't follow it. They're like, well, if the teacher thinks I could do it, I should definitely do it. And again, we have to consider the whole, you know, balance and everything on your plate, because sometimes just because you can doesn't mean you definitely should. It might mean that you want to take the time to, that class you heard is like super, you know, a lot of reading, and I'm a slow reader, but I really love this. You know, it's a lot of individual considerations. So, you know, we'll look forward to having those conversations with each individual student.
Great. With that, I want to thank everybody who's viewing this evening or might be viewing in the days to come. We look forward to continue working with your child through the rest of their years in high school before they graduate. Have a great night.